What's up, YouTube? It's your boy Nate coming at you once again from Shepherd Basketball. And I'm going to do something different. And I normally don't do reaction videos on this platform. I did a few, and that's because I'm working with the sponsor. So I did a few reaction videos. So that's what that was about. That's why I did that. But I want to do a video on this. I saw the title. And so what I do is I don't just go off a title and comment. Jimmer is scoring 40 points per game in China. Why isn't he in the NBA? Okay, so I'm going to play this video and I'm going to give my commentary and let you guys know what I think.
College basketball season and briefly became one of the most famous faces on the planet. Because if you don't remember, in 2011, Jimmer briefly had us in awe with his 40-foot jumpers, his insane buzzer beaters, and his ability to fill up the stat sheet despite the fact that he was just 6'2" and looked more like a golfer than a future NBA lottery pick. And as this hype grew,
What does that mean? He looked like a golfer. We're trying to say because he's white? I mean, there's lots of white boys who can play. Pistol Pete Maravich looked like a smoked out hippie. John Stockton didn't look like a basketball player. Larry Bird didn't look like a basketball player. Mark Price didn't look like a basketball player. Steve Kerr didn't look like a basketball player. He looked like a golfer. Jim Paxson didn't look like a. Should I go on? So that's a dumb comment. Number one. Number two. I just I knew he wasn't gonna make it in the NBA. I knew he wasn't, and that's no knock towards him. I mean, I just knew that type of game ain't gonna work in the NBA. I knew it. I knew it wasn't gonna work. So they're not gonna just let you shoot 40 feet. They're not Brigham Young. How many of these guys knew about Brigham Young? And when you're playing college basketball, you're traveling. He wasn't really popular until I think when he was about to go to the league. So people didn't know much about him. They ran the offense through him. When in the NBA, it's a different ball game. In the NBA, they're picking you up, aka Patrick Beverly. He's gonna guard you from full court. They're in more shape. The court's bigger, the players are stronger, and the players are faster, and they have scouting reports. And Brigham Young, what conference is that?
as
I mean,
Jimmer racked up
there's a lot of tangibles that goes on with it. But if you just get caught up in just points, scoring points, you're like, what? Oh my goodness. Let me shut up.
college awards while leading his team to the Sweet 16, things began to get out of hand. Suddenly, the national phenomenon that was Jimmer was seen not only as a dominant college player, but maybe, just maybe, scouts began to believe we were watching the next Steph Curry. Now,
No, it wasn't.
obviously,
No, it
that
wasn't.
did not happen. However, after failing out of the NBA, Jimmer has still made headlines the last 3 years because of the ridiculous numbers he has put up in China. It is because of these numbers that the question has to be asked. Why did Jimmer fail in the NBA? And also, can a man who's put up 75 points in a recent professional basketball game come back and make a real contribution in the NBA? So what's up, guys? Mike here, and yes, that is the topic for today's video. We are going to be looking at Jimmer Fredette. And really, there's nothing else I have to say here, so let's just jump into the video. Now, before we look at Jimmer's time in China, and before we can figure out whether or not he has a real chance to return to the league, let's briefly go over why scouts thought that Jimmer might be the next Steph Curry. Because the thing is, even when he was in high school, Jimmer was just different. Yes, like almost every future NBA player, Fredette dominated high school basketball, but for him, that wasn't enough. He needed tougher competition, and so as soon as he was 18, he joined his older brother TJ and played pickup basketball games at the local jail with the inmates. These games would give Jimmer a toughness that was rarely seen in a player that young. and as Fredette remembers, quote, "It was a little intimidating at first, seeing all these inmates watching you from the stands, but it was a great experience. It made you mentally tough." This toughness would prove to be extremely valuable for Jimmer during his rise as a college basketball star. Now,
he had a great pull-up jump shot.
Details
he had a great pull-up jumper.
Let me give you a brief reminder. It was during his junior year that the Jimmer hype train really began to take off, as in a late December game against Arizona, Fredette made national headlines when he scored 49 points in a blowout against
he could fill it up.
It was that game that put Jimmer on the map, but really it was his senior season when things began to get crazy. And before
that's
we
what I
continue,
just
guys,
said.
I'm happy to say that this video is sponsored.
And that's what I just said. People started hearing about him his senior year right before he went to the league. Now, yeah, he had a great pull-up jump shot. He shot from 40, 50 feet. He was phenomenal. Yes. Just like me, when I played overseas, okay, not I play overseas, let me not lie and exaggerate. I tried out, and I looked okay, I looked good. But when I played in the Drew League, it was a whole different ball game. Now you can go Google the Drew League. You know, I mean, it had 10 points, but that was a hard 10 points. But it's just different. The competition's different.
By SeatGeek. Now, SeatGeek is an app that takes all of the best ticket prices from around the internet and puts them all in one place for you to off your first purchase. Also, linked at this point that Fredette truly became a household name. Everyone was talking about him, and Kevin Durant actually tweeted, "Jimmer Fredette is the best scorer in the world." By the end of the season,
maybe he believed his own hype. Maybe he was too full of himself. Maybe he was cocky. Maybe he partied. Maybe he was fooling around with women. There's a lot. Maybe he was battling an injury, a depression. There's a lot that goes in when making it in the NBA. Because a lot can happen.
Not the only one.
He's just going off him being
President
scored.
Barack Obama was also sold, telling the world, quote, "He is
maybe he stopped working on his game."
Obviously in the country. Endorsements like this, of course, put tremendous pressure on Jimmer, but he wasn't phased. He was mentally tough. By the end of his senior season, Jimmer would lead BYU to their first Sweet 16 appearance in 30 years, and for the season, he would average 29 points per game and was the consensus national
Adam Morrison
of the year. Again, it was at this point that the Jimmer hype had gotten out of hand, as some people seriously argued that Fredette was the next Steph Curry. This led to Jimmer getting drafted way too early, and it is also a huge reason as to why he is seen as a massive bust. However, with that in mind, the man still believed in himself, and he knew that he had the talent to play at a high level, but to make it back into the NBA, Jimmer would need to both improve his game and regain his confidence. Which meant, of course, that Jimmer would make the decision to sign with the Shanghai Sharks.
Yeah, good for him. He's making some money. Good for him.
Grow as a basketball player, while he was also given enough freedom on offense to get his confidence back. This decision would pay off big time, because while in the NBA, Jimmer's flaws overshadowed his scoring ability. But in China, things were very, very different. With the Sharks, Jimmer's coach put the ball in his hands and let him run the offense, which led to immediate and somewhat ridiculous results. In the first game of the season, Jimmer would drop 42 points in a Shanghai win that would prove to be just the start of a monster season. It seemed like every single game, Jimmer would drop 40 or 50 points, and because of this, he immediately went from fan favorite to a legitimate celebrity in China. His year one peak would come when he made national news after he dropped
his numbers are good over there
and made 10 threes in a single game. This briefly put him back in the NBA spotlight, but wasn't enough to gain him serious free agent consideration. Still though, these types of performances had rebuilt Jimmer's confidence, and he would finish his first season in China averaging 37.6 points, 8.2 rebounds, 4.2 assists, 1.6 6 steals, and he was named the CBA MVP. And just looking at those ridiculous numbers, as you could expect, there was some NBA interest in Jimmer after his first season in China. Several NBA teams did offer him 10-day contracts near the end of the season. However, a 10-day contract is hardly a guarantee, and as Jimmer put it, quote, "Obviously, I'm from the USA, and the NBA is the greatest league in the world. And if I have the opportunity to play in the NBA, that's where I would love to play. But China is a great opportunity. It's a good league over there. This is the reason that after year 1,
he's making decent money.
Remained in China, and it's a good thing he did because his year 2 stats were even more insane. As he grew more comfortable practically playing as a god amongst men, Jimmer would finish his second season with averages of 36.9 points, 6.9 rebounds, 5.5 assists, and 2 steals a game. This season would also again bring him national headlines, and this time these headlines were due to some drama. Because in a game against former NBA All-Star and Chinese basketball legend Stephon Marbury, Jimmer would torch Marbury, dominating the game.
How old is Marbury though?
Points, 13 rebounds, and 10
come on,
assists,
you can't.
leading his team to a 4-point win. This was obviously impressive.
Marbury's
However,
40.
it was not these stats that put him in the spotlight. Because in the third quarter of
Gotta
this
be
game,
over 40.
Jimmer would go up for a layup, but had the ball stolen from him by Marbury. This steal would frustrate Jimmer as he thought he was fouled, and so he shoved Stephon, and immediately a fight broke out. Obviously, this fight would end quickly, but national headlines still would be made largely based on Stephon Marbury's words and performance. Because in the post-game press conference, Marbury was quoted as saying, "He forgot what an NBA steal felt like. That's how we played in '96 and for sure in Coney Island," which was a statement that sounded great until you took into account that Stephon finished the game with 4 points, 6 rebounds, and 4 assists. Compare those numbers with Jimmer's 50-point triple-double, and as you can see, at this point, Jimmer had clearly...
Genius. Stephon Marbury had a better career in the NBA than Jimmer Fredette did. So that's what I'm saying. That's why I go off stats. So let's Google Stephon Marbury's age. Let's Google Stephon Marbury's age, which I'm not a fan of Marbury because I met him in person. He blew me off. But that's a whole nother conversation. Like, hey, Marbury, he did this to me and just kept walking. But, I'm not going to crap on the guy. I can look at it. Objectively. So Marbury is 2 years older than me. Marbury is 41 years old. He went to China after he had a lengthy career in the NBA. Genius. How can you compare the two? That's what I'm saying. This guy has a hard-on for Jimmer Fredette. Okay, so Jimmer Fredette's making $1.3 million over there in China, and Jimmer Fredette's born in '89. Jimmer Fredette, whatever his name is, he's 30 years old. And when this happened, he was 29 years old compared to a 41-year-old. He should have played a 42-year-old. That's a dumb comparison.
Established himself as a much better basketball player than Stephon, and to this day, now in
his
his third season in China,
he's younger.
Is averaging 37.9 points, 5.6 rebounds, 6.1 assists, and a crazy 3.5 steals per game. So now we come to the question. Why did Jimmer fail in the NBA? Well, to start things off here, let's go back to the 2011 draft.
Go back to that. Go back to the draft.
Took Jimmer was their head coach, Paul Westphal. Paul Westphal was someone who believed in Jimmer. He believed that he'd be able to play at a high level in the NBA, and we can see this in a quote from Westphal where he says, "We think he'll fit in really well with our roster. I hesitate to say until we get out there and get after it, but I think of him as a point guard. He plays the pick and roll really well, he's a good passer, obviously a great shooter." We will get back to that point guard remark eventually, but for now, let's continue into Jimmer's rookie season, and because of Westphal's belief in Jimmer, Fredette did get significant playing time in the beginning of his Sacramento career. However, just 7 games into his rookie season, Westphal was fired. The Kings' new coach, Mike Malone, did not have the same belief in Jimmer, and that soon became apparent as by around the middle of the season, Jimmer's playing time drastically.
I knew he was going to say
as
this.
embarrassingly for him, the 60th pick in the draft, Isaiah Thomas earned a starting spot over him. Now, we obviously know now that Isaiah Thomas clearly should have been drafted higher, but that doesn't change the fact that a second-round pick starting over Jimmer at this point was very significant. Teams try their best.
Hey, genius. Isaiah Thomas was a better player. Isaiah Thomas was a better player. I saw Isaiah Thomas in college. He got picked. They didn't scout him properly. He was a better player. I saw Jimmer for that play. He missed shots, buddy.
Because front offices don't want to look like they picked a bust. However, this was not the case for Jimmer, as it was obvious that the Kings had pretty much given up on him early on. Fredette would play in just 2 full seasons before he was bought out by Sacramento in the middle of his third year.
Yeah, see, this guy clearly is a fan of Jimmer Fredette. He's not speaking the truth. I'm not a fan of his, nor I dislike him. I'm being objective. I'm not a fan of really no one. I'm very objective. Burnett couldn't handle the jump shot. I saw him. Isaiah Thomas was just a better ball player than him. Maybe Fredette. He didn't do well in practice. Maybe he got outplayed. You're just going off college numbers, buddy. You're just going off him scoring all these astronomical numbers and him playing in China. Jerk off. How do you compare China from the NBA? How do you compare China basketball to the NBA? What is... Dude, what is your...
15 days after he would score a career-high 24 points against the Knicks. From there, Jimmer would bounce around and play on several different teams before
wasn't that good in the NBA.
D-League, where he was an all-star, but no longer had any serious interest from NBA teams. And the thing is, teams had some...
So what does that tell you? Maybe the I couldn't handle the athleticism. What does that tell you? Numbers and stats don't lie.
Great reasons to not be interested in Jimmer at this point. The reasons that Jimmer failed in the NBA are numerous. He was too short. He was not a true
That's
point
not what it was.
He couldn't play any defense at all, etc. We all know those reasons, but
that
the
wasn't
biggest reason that Jimmer failed in the NBA was that he simply needed an offense to revolve around him to succeed. Just listen to these words from an unnamed assistant coach that coached Jimmer in the NBA. Quote, Jimmer thinks everybody is stupid. He thinks everybody needs to come and just turn over their offense and let him shoot it anytime he wants. That's not how the league works. Yikes. That is a pretty deflating...
That's what I was saying. It's different when you're just throwing up half-court shots and your coach is letting you do it because he thinks you're the greatest thing since sliced bread. In the NBA, that ain't gonna work. That's not gonna work. What are you talking about? I saw him play with my own eyes. He didn't make those open jump shots like he did in college. He didn't.
If you have any hopes of Jimmer returning to the NBA, and at this point, I'm not sure that I do. As we've said in this video already, Jimmer seems very happy in China, and just think about that quote again. Jimmer thinks teams are stupid because they aren't completely basing their offense around him. If that was the case a few years ago, well, what does that mean Jimmer would think now? For the last 3 years, he's been playing in China, where the ball has been in his hands more than ever before.
He's playing
allowed to
against
shoot from
in
anywhere.
China.
He's allowed to do really whatever he wants. I'm not entirely convinced, to say the least, that Jimmer could go from a superstar in China to just a role player in the NBA. I don't know if he has that in his mental makeup. I don't know if he wants that. Maybe at the end of the day, he's just okay with averaging 40 points per game in China, and that's the last we're gonna hear from Jimmer, at least in terms of playing in the NBA. For now, that wraps up today's video, guys.
Good.
If you enjoyed this one, it was a lot of fun to make, and if you enjoyed it, make sure to
Yeah. It was fun doing this video too. Make sure you guys subscribe to the platform. Subscribe, share the videos, comment, and like. It's your boy Nate from Shepherd Basketball. I'm out.